Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Hughes Valiant, looking out at the stars. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. His crew worked at their stations, checking reports from the outer colonies. Everything seemed normal until the communication officer turned around with a worried face. "Captain, we have an urgent message from the Kepler colony. It's marked as First Contact Protocol." Jake's heart jumped. First contact meant aliens. Real aliens. After hundreds of years of searching the galaxy, humans had finally found other intelligent life. But the officer's worried face told him this was not good news. "Put it through to my ready room," Jake said. He walked to his private office and sat down. The screen showed Ambassador Lisa Grant from the Kepler colony. She looked scared and tired. "Captain Morrison, we have a situation. 3 days ago, an alien ship appeared in our system. They made contact and gave us a message. It's not what we hoped for." Jake leaned forward. "What kind of message?" "They call themselves the Zephyrian Empire. They gave us 30 days to surrender. Complete surrender. They want us to give up all our weapons, disband our military, and become their slaves. If we refuse, they will destroy every human world." Jake felt cold. This was not how first contact was supposed to happen. "Are you sure about this?" "I met with their representative. His name is High Commander Vexther. He showed me recordings of what they did to other species who refused to surrender. Captain, they destroyed entire worlds. Billions of people, all dead. They turned living planets into empty rocks floating in space." The screen went quiet for a moment. Jake could see the fear in Lisa's eyes. She had seen something terrible. He said, "We have 30 days to decide." But he also said no species has ever successfully fought them. They have thousands of ships and weapons we can't imagine. He called us primitive and weak. Jake stood up. "Where is their ship now?" "Gone. They left right after delivering the message. But they said they would return for our answer in 30 days. After the call ended, Jake immediately contacted Earth. Within hours, he was ordered to return to Earth for an emergency meeting. The trip took 3 days, and when he arrived, the entire government was in chaos. Admiral Peter Collins met Jake at the spaceport. Peter was an old friend and the head of Earth's military. His face was grim. "Jake, this is bad. Really bad. We've been analyzing the data from the Kepler colony. These Zephyrians have been conquering worlds for over 1,000 years. They have an empire spanning 200 star systems." They rode in silence to the government building. Inside, President Karen Hayes was meeting with the Colonial Council. The room was full of worried faces and angry voices. "We can't just surrender," said one governor. "Humans don't bow to anyone." "But what choice do we have?" asked another. "If they can destroy planets, how can we fight them?" Commander Ryan Bell, the intelligence chief, stood up. "I've been studying their pattern. They always give the same ultimatum. 30 days to surrender or face total destruction. But here's what's interesting. They always keep their word. If you surrender, they let you live as slaves. If you fight, they kill everyone." President Hayes looked tired. She had been awake for 3 days straight, reading reports and meeting with advisors. "How many species have fought them?" 17 that we know of. All of them are extinct now. The Zephyrians don't just destroy military targets. They destroy everything. Cities, farms, forests, even the air itself. They leave nothing alive. The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. How could humanity fight an enemy that had never been defeated? General Lisa Murphy, head of military operations, spoke next. "We have 600 ships in our entire fleet. Our best estimates say they have over 15,000. Our weapons are plasma cannons and nuclear missiles. They have weapons that can crack planets in half. So what do we do? Asked President. Hayes. Jake had been quiet during the meeting, but now he stood up. We fight. Everyone looked at him. Captain Morrison, did you hear what we just said? We can't win. Maybe not, but we can't surrender either. I've seen what slavery looks like in the history books. I've read about people who gave up their freedom to save their lives. It never ends well. Secretary of Defense Helen Torres nodded. The captain is right. If we surrender, we lose everything that makes us human. Our freedom, our dignity, our future. At least if we fight, we die as free people. Admiral Collins stood up. I agree. But we need to be smart about this. We can't fight them the way they expect. We need to find a different way. Dr. Sam Parker, head of military research, had been taking notes. I might have some ideas. We've been working on new weapons technology. Things that might surprise them. President Hayes looked around the room. Are we all agreed? We fight? One by one, every person in the room nodded. They knew they were probably choosing death, but they were choosing it as free humans. Then we need to send our answer, said President Hayes. Helen, draft a response. Secretary Torres wrote the message on a simple piece of paper. It was short and clear. To the Zephyrian Empire, we have received your ultimatum. We reject your terms. We will not surrender our freedom. We will not become your slaves. If you want to destroy us, you will have to come and try. We are ready to fight. We are ready to die. But we will never kneel. This is humanity's final answer. The message was sent the next day. Within hours, it was broadcast to every human colony. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Millions of people volunteered to fight. Factories began working day and night to build weapons and ships. Parents sent their children to safe worlds far from Earth. Jake returned to his ship with new orders. He would lead the reconnaissance fleet, watching for the enemy's return. As the Hughes Valiant left Earth's orbit, he looked back at the blue planet, where humans had been born. He didn't know if he would ever see it again, but he knew that whatever happened, humanity would face it standing up. They had chosen to fight, and now they would see where that choice led them. The countdown had begun. In 27 days, the Zephyrians would return for their answer. They would find humanity ready to give it to them. 3 weeks after humanity sent their defiant message, the stars began to change. Jake Morrison was on duty aboard the UES Valiant when his sensors officer called out, "Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Something big is coming out of hyperspace." Jake moved to the sensor station. The readings were unlike anything he had ever seen. "How big?" "Sir, I'm reading over 1,500 ships. And they're huge. The smallest one is 3 times the size of our biggest battleship." Jake felt his stomach drop. He had known this day would come, but seeing it on the sensors made it real. "Send an alert to Earth Command. The Zephyrians are here." Lieutenant Commander Amy Johnson, his tactical officer, ran calculations on her computer. "Captain, their flagship is enormous. It's the size of a small moon. The energy readings suggest weapons that could destroy entire continents with a single shot." Dr. Ben Carter, the ship's science officer, looked up from his instruments. "Captain, I'm detecting technology we don't understand. Their ships seem to bend space around them. They're not just faster than us. They're operating on completely different principles." Jake ordered the Valiant to move closer, but stay hidden. They needed to see what humanity was facing. As they approached, the true size of the enemy fleet became clear. The ships were arranged in perfect formation, moving with mechanical precision toward the inner solar system. "My God," whispered Amy. "How are we supposed to fight that?" On Earth, alarms were ringing in every military base. General Lisa Murphy was in the command center. coordinating the largest military mobilization in human history. Every factory had been converted to produce weapons and ships. Every person who could hold a weapon was being trained to fight. General, we're receiving reports from Captain Morrison. The enemy fleet is larger than our worst estimates. Lisa looked at the tactical display. Red dots representing enemy ships covered the screen. There were so many that the computer couldn't count them all accurately. How long until they reach Earth? At their current speed, 6 days. 6 days to prepare for the end of the world. Lisa activated the emergency communication system. All stations, this is General Murphy. Operation Last Stand is now active. All civilians are to evacuate to the underground shelters. All military personnel report to battle stations immediately. Across the solar system, humanity prepared for war. On Mars, workers rushed to complete the new weapons factories. On the Moon, massive cannons were being installed to defend Earth. In the asteroid belt, mining stations were converted into weapon platforms. But everyone knew it wasn't enough. The enemy had too many ships, too many weapons, too much technology. Humanity was about to face an enemy that had never been defeated. Dr. Sam Parker worked frantically in his laboratory. He had been developing new weapons based on quantum mechanics, but the technology was dangerous and unpredictable. The weapons could destroy enemy ships, but they might also tear holes in space itself. Dr. Parker, how much time do you need? Asked his assistant, Dr. Emma Stone. At least 2 weeks to make them stable, but we only have 6 days. Emma looked at the test results. What if we don't make them stable? What if we just make them work? Sam understood what she meant. The weapons might work, but they could also destroy the ships firing them. That's incredibly dangerous. We could kill ourselves. We're going to die anyway if we don't try something. Meanwhile, in the outer system, the Zephyrian fleet continued its advance. They moved like a force of nature, unstoppable and overwhelming. Their ships scanned each planet they passed, analyzing human defenses and finding them laughably weak. High Commander Vexter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion. He had conquered 47 species in his career, and humans would be the 48th. They all followed the same pattern. Brave words at first, then desperate fighting, then begging for mercy at the end. Commander, we're receiving transmissions from the human colonies. They're evacuating civilians and preparing defenses. Vexter was amused. Let them prepare. It makes no difference. Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Their ships cannot match our speed. This will be over quickly. But as the fleet moved deeper into the solar system, they encountered something unexpected. The humans were not just defending their worlds. They were fighting back. Small groups of human ships attacked the edges of the Zephyrian fleet, then disappeared before they could be destroyed. Captain Morrison led one of these attacks. The Valiant and 5 other ships struck at a Zephyrian patrol, fired their weapons, then jumped away before the enemy could respond. They didn't do much damage, but they proved that humans wouldn't just sit and wait to die. Captain, the enemy is responding to our attacks. They're sending hunter groups after us. Jake smiled grimly. Good. Every ship chasing us is one less ship, attacking our colonies. The hit-and-run attacks continued for 3 days. The Zephyrians found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to stand still and fight properly. Human ships appeared, attacked, and vanished like ghosts. It was frustrating and annoying, but not dangerous. On the 4th day, the Zephyrians reached the outer colonies. The first target was New Austin, a farming world with 2 million people. Colony Administrator Tony Brooks had evacuated most of the civilians, but thousands remained to defend their homes. The Zephyrian attack was swift and merciless. They didn't just destroy military targets. They destroyed everything. Cities, farms, forests, Even the atmosphere itself was stripped away. Within hours, New Austin was a dead rock floating in space. Tony Brooks escaped with the last evacuation ship, carrying the horrifying news to Earth. "They don't just kill people," he reported. "They kill the entire planet. Nothing survives." The same pattern was repeated at colony after colony. The Zephyrians would arrive, demand surrender, then destroy everything when the humans refused. Millions of people died, but not one colony surrendered. Major Kate Lewis commanded the defense of the Centauri system. She had 12 ships and 30,000 soldiers. The Zephyrians had over 100 ships. The battle lasted 6 hours. Kate's forces fought with desperate courage, but they couldn't stop the enemy Dot as her ship was destroyed around her. Kate sent a final message to Earth. "We held them for 6 hours. We made them pay for every mile. Tell Earth we died free." The news of each defeat reached Earth and was broadcast to the remaining colonies. But instead of breaking human morale, each defeat made them more determined. The Zephyrians had shown their true nature. They were not conquerors, but destroyers. There would be no mercy, no slavery, only death. President Hayes addressed the nation from the underground command center. "My fellow humans, we face our darkest hour. The enemy has shown us what defeat means. Not just death, but the complete destruction of everything we have built. But we will not give up. We will fight until the last human draws breath." Dr. Parker finally completed his weapons. They were unstable and dangerous, but they worked. The first test destroyed an abandoned asteroid and also created a tear in space that took 3 days to close. "These weapons could destroy our own ships," warned Dr. Stone. "Then we'll have to be careful," replied Parker, "or we'll have to be willing to die with the enemy." As the Zephyrian fleet approached Earth, humanity prepared for the final battle. They had lost dozens of colonies and millions of people, but they had learned something important. The enemy was not invincible. They were just very, very strong. More importantly, humanity had discovered something about themselves. They would rather die fighting than live as slaves. Every human who had faced the Zephyrians had chosen death over surrender. It was a choice that would define their species. The countdown continued. In 2 days, the Zephyrian fleet would reach Earth. The final battle was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what it meant to be human. The Zephyrian fleet moved closer to Earth, like a dark storm. Admiral Peter Collins watched the tactical display from the command center buried deep under the Rocky Mountains. The enemy ships filled the screen, more than anyone had ever seen in one place. "Admiral, we're getting reports from the Tau Ceti system. Admiral Grace Cooper's fleet is engaging the enemy." Peter knew Grace well. She commanded humanity's third fleet, 12 of their best ships. She was a good officer and a brave woman. At 12 ships against hundreds was not a battle. It was a sacrifice. The communication came through 20 minutes later. Grace's voice was calm, despite the explosions in the background. "Earth Command, this is Admiral Cooper. We are heavily outnumbered. Enemy weapons are cutting through our shields like paper. We cannot hold." Peter closed his eyes. He had sent Grace to her death, and they both knew it. But someone had to try to slow the enemy down. "Admiral Cooper, can you tell us anything about their weapons?" "They're using some kind of energy beam that ignores our shields completely. Our armor is useless. The ships just dissolve when they're hit. We've destroyed 3 of their smaller ships, but they have so many more." Grace's transmission ended in static. The Tau Ceti system had fallen, and with it, humanity's third fleet. 12 ships and 8,000 people were gone in 12 minutes. Dr. Sam Parker was working frantically in his laboratory. The quantum weapons were ready, but they came with a terrible price. Each weapon used rare elements that could only be found deep in Earth's core. Getting those elements meant drilling deeper than humans had ever gone before. Dr. Parker, the mining operation is causing problems, reported his assistant, Dr. Emma Stone. The drilling is affecting Earth's magnetic field. If we continue, the planet will become uninhabitable within 50 years. Sam looked at the data. The quantum weapons could win the war, but using them would slowly kill Earth itself. How many weapons can we build? If we strip mine the core completely, maybe 300. But Emma, Earth will be dead long before that. President Hayes was briefed on the situation. The choice was simple and terrible. Use the weapons and save humanity while killing Earth, or refuse to use them and watch both Earth and humanity die. Long would Earth remain habitable if we use the weapons? Best case scenario, 30 years. Worst case, 10 years. Hayes thought about the children in the underground shelters. They deserved a future, even if it wasn't on Earth. Do it. Build the weapons. We'll find a new home for humanity. Commander Ryan Bell had been studying the enemy's communications. His team had finally broken their encryption codes, and what they found was worse than anyone imagined. The Zephyrians aren't planning to enslave us, he reported. They're going to kill us all, every human being. They consider us too dangerous to be allowed to live. Admiral Collins looked up from his tactical plans. What do you mean? I intercepted their military communications. They call us the Defiant Species. They've never encountered a race that fights back this hard. They're afraid that if they let any humans live, we'll eventually find a way to destroy them. The room fell silent. Everyone had hoped that surrender might still be possible for the children and innocent people. But now they knew the truth. This was a war of extinction. Captain Jake Morrison was leading a reconnaissance mission near Jupiter when he made a discovery that changed everything. His ship, the U.S. Valiant, had been tracking a damaged Zephyrian vessel that had been hit by debris from one of their own destroyed ships. Captain, the alien ship is leaking atmosphere. It looks like their hull was breached. Jake saw an opportunity. Amy, take us closer. Ben, scan their ship for life signs. Lieutenant Commander Amy Johnson guided the ship carefully toward the damaged alien vessel. Dr. Ben Carter ran his sensors over the enemy ship, learning everything he could about their technology. Captain, I'm detecting 17 life signs. The ship is definitely crippled. Their engines are offline. Jake made a decision that would have seemed impossible a month ago. Prepare a boarding party. We're going inside. The boarding party consisted of Jake, Sergeant Matt Hayes, and Corporal Nina Ross. They wore heavy combat armor and carried the most advanced weapons humanity had. As they moved through the alien ship, they saw technology that was hundreds of years ahead of anything humans had built. But they also saw something else. The aliens were not gods or monsters. They were just people with fears and weaknesses like any other living beings. When Jake's team reached the bridge, they found the alien captain trying to repair his communication system. The alien looked up when the humans entered. He was tall and thin, with 4 arms and gray skin. His eyes were large and dark, showing intelligence and surprise. You are the humans, he said in perfect English. I did not expect you to board our ship. Jake kept his weapon ready. We're here to learn about your technology. The alien captain seemed almost amused. You cannot defeat us with knowledge. We have conquered 47 species. You will be the 48th, maybe, but we're not like the others. All species say that. All species believe they are special. All species die. Corporal Ross was working on the alien computer systems. Her specialty was breaking into enemy networks. Captain, I'm accessing their database. I'm finding information about their military tactics. What she found changed everything. The Zephyrians had never fought a species that chose mutual destruction over defeat. Their entire strategy was based on the assumption that enemies would eventually surrender to save their own lives. Captain, look at this. They have no plan for fighting an enemy that's willing to die. All their tactics assume the enemy will try to preserve their own forces. Jake realized that humanity had found the Empire's weakness. They had never fought anyone crazy enough to choose death over slavery. The Zephyrians had overwhelming force, but they didn't know how to fight an enemy that didn't care about surviving. Alien Captain had been listening to their conversation. You speak of choosing death. This is foolishness. Life is precious. Survival is the highest goal. Not for humans, Jake replied. Freedom is more precious than life. We'd rather die free than live as slaves. The alien looked confused. This makes no sense. Dead beings cannot build, cannot create, cannot grow. What purpose does death serve? It serves the purpose of showing the galaxy that some things are worth dying for. Jake's team gathered as much information as they could from the alien ship, then returned to the Valiant. The intelligence they had gathered was sent immediately to Earth. Dr. Parker was already implementing the new strategy. If the Zephyrians couldn't handle enemies who chose death over defeat, then humanity would give them exactly that. We change our entire approach, he told the military leaders. We don't try to win in the traditional sense. We try to make victory so costly that they regret ever coming here. The new weapons were distributed to every remaining human ship. But these weren't just weapons. They were suicide bombs. Each ship would carry enough firepower to destroy itself and take several enemy ships with it. Major Kate Lewis was given command of the Mars Defense Force. Her job was to protect the final weapon, a quantum bomb that could destroy the entire solar system. It was humanity's last resort, the ultimate expression of their choice to die rather than surrender. Major, if the enemy breaks through our defenses, you know what you have to do. Kate nodded. I understand. If we can't stop them, we'll take them with us. As the Zephyrian fleet approached Earth, both sides prepared for a battle unlike any that had ever been fought. The Zephyrians expected a desperate but ultimately hopeless defense. They had seen it many times before, but humanity was preparing something different. They were preparing to show the galaxy what happened when you threatened a species that valued freedom more than life itself. The final weapon was ready. The ships were armed. The soldiers were in position. And every human knew that they were probably about to die, but they also knew that their death would have meaning. They would die as free beings, and their sacrifice would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity was ready to pay any price to remain free. The Battle of Sol began at dawn on Earth. The Zephyrian fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their massive ships blotting out the stars. High Commander Vexter stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident that this would be another easy victory. Begin the final assault, he ordered. Target all military installations first, then the population centers. But as the first wave of Zephyrian ships moved toward Earth, something unexpected happened. The human ships didn't retreat or try to defend fixed positions. Instead, they attacked with desperate fury, using weapons the Zephyrians had never seen. Before Captain Jake Morrison led the attack aboard the Hughes Valiant. His ship was small compared to the enemy vessels, but it carried Dr. Parker's quantum weapons. The first shot tore through a Zephyrian cruiser like it was made of paper. Direct hit, called out Lieutenant Commander Amy Johnson. Their shields didn't even slow it down. The quantum weapons ignored the Zephyrian shields completely. The energy beams cut through their advanced armor as if it didn't exist. For the first time in 1,000 years, Zephyrian ships were being destroyed by primitive enemies, but the weapons came with a terrible cost. Each shot created dangerous distortions in space itself. The U's Valiant shook violently as reality twisted around it. Several human ships were destroyed by their own weapons when the quantum effects got out of control. Admiral Peter Collins commanded the human fleet from the UES Defiance. He watched as his ships traded their lives for enemy vessels, knowing that each exchange brought humanity closer to extinction. "Admiral, we're losing ships faster than we can replace them," reported his tactical officer. "I know, but look at the enemy casualties. They're losing ships too, and they're not used to it." The Zephyrian fleet was indeed taking heavy losses. Their tight formations, designed for maximum firepower, became a liability as quantum disruptions spread from ship to ship. When one ship was hit, the energy cascade often destroyed 2 or 3 others nearby. High Commander Vexter watched his fleet being torn apart by weapons that defied known physics. "How are they doing this? Their technology is primitive." "Sir, we're detecting quantum distortions around their weapons. They're manipulating fundamental forces. We've never seen anything like it." Vexter was angry and confused. No species had ever developed such weapons. How had these primitive humans created technology that his empire didn't understand? Focus all fire on their command ships. Kill their leaders, and they'll surrender. But the Zephyrians discovered that killing human leaders only made the others fight harder. When Admiral Collins's ship was destroyed, Captain Morrison took command. When Morrison's ship was crippled, Major Kate Lewis coordinated the defense from Mars. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, taking enemy vessels with them. The space around Earth became a graveyard of twisted metal and burning gas. Dr. Ben Carter was working desperately to keep the quantum weapon stable. Each shot was becoming more dangerous as the distortions accumulated. "Captain, we can't keep this up much longer. Space itself is starting to crack." Jake looked at the tactical display. Half the human fleet was gone, but they had destroyed over 300 enemy ships. It was a better exchange rate than anyone had hoped for. How long until the quantum effects become critical? Maybe 2 hours. After that, we risked tearing a hole in space-time itself. The Zephyrian fleet regrouped and began targeting Earth's civilian population. Massive energy beams struck the planet's surface, turning entire cities into glowing craters. Millions of people died in seconds, but the orbital defenses continued to fight. President Hayes coordinated the battle from the underground command center. Reports came in from around the world. New York was gone, London was burning. Tokyo had been evacuated just in time. But the government continued to function, and the military continued to fight. "Madam President, the enemy is breaking through our orbital defenses. They'll be in position to destroy the planet within hours." Hayes looked at the reports. Humanity had fought harder than anyone thought possible, but they were losing. The time had come for the final option. "Contact Major Lewis on Mars. Tell her to prepare the ultimate weapon." On Mars, Major Lewis received the message she had been dreading. The quantum bomb was ready, a weapon that could destroy the entire solar system. It was humanity's final answer to the Zephyrian ultimatum. "Major, are you sure about this?" asked Dr. Carter, who had been transferred to Mars to help with the weapon. "I'm sure. If we can't save Earth, we'll make sure the enemy pays the ultimate price for destroying it." The Zephyrian fleet began its final assault on Earth. Hundreds of ships moved into position to glass the planet's surface. High Commander Vexter prepared to watch another world die. But as the enemy ships approached Earth, the human defenders implemented their last desperate strategy. Every remaining ship was loaded with quantum weapons and set to self-destruct. They would ram the enemy vessels, destroying themselves and taking the attackers with them. Captain Morrison's ship, the U's Valiant, was barely functional. Half his crew was dead, and the ship's hull was cracked in a dozen places. But his quantum weapons were still operational. Amy set course for the enemy flagship, full speed. Lieutenant Commander Johnson understood immediately. "Captain, that's a suicide run. I know. But if we can take out their command ship, maybe the rest will retreat." The Valiant accelerated toward the massive Zephyrian flagship. Enemy weapons tore at the small human ship, but it kept coming. Jake activated the quantum weapons, overloading them to create the biggest explosion possible. "This is Captain Morrison to all human forces. We've made our choice. We die free, and we take them with us." The Valiant crashed into the Zephyrian flagship just as its quantum weapons exploded. The resulting explosion tore through both ships, creating a cascade of destruction that spread to nearby vessels. The enemy fleet's command structure was shattered in seconds, but the victory came at a terrible cost. The quantum explosion created a tear in space-time that began to grow. Dr. Carter's worst fears were coming true. They had damaged reality itself. Major Lewis watched the battle from Mars through her sensors. The human fleet was gone, but they had taken over half the enemy ships with them. The remaining Zephyrians were retreating, but they were also preparing to destroy Earth from long range. "Major, the enemy is charging their planet-killer weapons. They're going to glass Earth from a safe distance." Lewis looked at the quantum bomb. It was ready. One button would end everything: the Earth, the enemy fleet, and the solar system itself. But it would also send a message to the galaxy that humanity could not be conquered. "Dr. Carter, send a message to the Zephyrian fleet. Tell them we have one more weapon to show them." The message was broadcast on all frequencies. High Commander Vexter, now commanding from a smaller ship after his flagship was destroyed, received the transmission with surprise. "This is Major Kate Lewis of the Human Defense Force. You came to our system demanding surrender. You destroyed our worlds and killed our people. But we have one final answer to your ultimatum." Vexter was curious despite himself. These humans had already shown weapons he didn't understand. What else could they have? "We choose death over slavery. We choose freedom over life, and we choose to take you with us." The quantum bomb activated. The explosion started small, just a bright flash on the surface of Mars. But it grew quickly, consuming the planet and reaching out toward the rest of the solar system. The Zephyrian fleet tried to retreat, but the quantum explosion moved faster than their ships. It caught them just as they reached the edge of the system, tearing their vessels apart and sending shockwaves through hyperspace. The explosion reached Earth last. The planet's surface was already scarred by the battle, but now it was consumed entirely. The blue world where humanity had been born became a star for a few brief moments, then collapsed into quantum foam. But the explosion didn't stop with the solar system. The quantum effects spread through hyperspace, reaching every corner of the Zephyrian Empire simultaneously. Their communication networks collapsed, their fleets were stranded, and their carefully controlled empire began to fall apart. On worlds throughout the galaxy, enslaved species suddenly found themselves free as their Zephyrian masters lost contact with their homeworld. The empire that had ruled for 1,000 years crumbled in a single day. The last human transmission was sent just before the quantum explosion reached Earth. It was broadcast on every frequency, ensuring that every species in the galaxy would hear humanity's final words. "This is Earth. We were given 30 days to surrender our freedom. We chose to surrender our lives instead. To any who would enslave others, remember what happened here. Some things are worth dying for." The solar system disappeared in a flash of quantum fire, taking with it the last of humanity and the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. The Zephyrian Empire was broken, and the galaxy was free. But the price of that freedom was the extinction of the species that had made it possible. The quantum explosion that destroyed the Sol system sent shockwaves through hyperspace that reached every corner of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled for over 1,000 years, collapsed in a single day. Their communication networks failed, their fleets were stranded, and their carefully controlled empire began to fall apart. But humanity was not entirely extinct. Small groups of humans had been living on distant worlds, far from the main colonies. These survivors had watched in horror as their homeworld died, but they had also seen what that sacrifice accomplished. Ambassador Lisa Grant was on a diplomatic mission to the Rigel system when the Sol system was destroyed. She was now the highest ranking human official left alive, and she found herself speaking for a species that had chosen extinction over slavery. Ambassador Grant, we are receiving communications from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire is collapsing. Their enslaved species are rebelling everywhere. Lisa looked at the reports with mixed emotions. Humanity had won, but at the cost of everything they had built. Earth was gone, along with billions of people and centuries of human culture. But their sacrifice had freed the entire galaxy. How? Many human survivors are there? We estimate about 50,000, scattered across 12 worlds. Most were researchers, diplomats, or traders who happened to be away from the main colonies. 50,000 people. That was all that remained, of a species that had once numbered in the billions. But those 50,000 carried with them the memory of what humanity had done, and the responsibility to ensure that sacrifice was not forgotten. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, Lisa received a message that changed everything. It came from the Andromedan Council, a group of species that had been enslaved by the Zephyrians for centuries. Ambassador Grant, we wish to meet with you. The Andromedans, the Cetians, the Vegan Alliance, and 47 other species want to form a new government. We want humanity to lead it. Lisa was stunned. Lead it? We're barely 50,000 people. We have no ships, no technology, no worlds of our own. The alien representative, a tall blue-skinned being named Zara, smiled sadly. Ambassador, you have something more valuable than ships or technology. You have shown the galaxy that freedom is worth any price. No species will ever forget what humanity did. The meeting took place on New Geneva, a small human research station that became humanity's temporary capital. Representatives from over 100 species gathered to form what they called the Galactic Liberation Council. Lisa stood before the assembled delegates, still struggling to understand how humanity had gone from near extinction to leading a galactic government. The other species looked at her with a mixture of respect and awe that made her uncomfortable. Fellow beings, she began, 3 months ago my species made a choice. We chose to die rather than live as slaves. We destroyed our own homeworld to prevent our enemies from conquering it. Some might call this madness. The assembly was silent. Every being present had heard the story of humanity's last stand, and many had lost friends and family to Zephyrian oppression. But our choice had consequences we never imagined. By destroying ourselves, we destroyed the empire that had enslaved you. By choosing death, we gave the galaxy life. A representative from the Andromedan Council stood up. Ambassador Grant, humanity's sacrifice freed over 200 species from slavery. Billions of beings now live free because 50 billion humans chose to die. We will never forget this debt. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. We didn't do it for glory or gratitude. We did it because we couldn't live any other way. Freedom was more important to us than life itself. Over the following months, the Galactic Liberation Council grew into a true government. The surviving humans were given positions of honor, not because of their numbers or strength, but because of what their species had proven was possible. Tony Brooks, the former colony administrator who had escaped from New Austin, became the head. of refugee resettlement. He helped millions of former slaves find new homes and rebuild their lives. Dr. Emma Stone, one of the few scientists to survive, led the effort to understand and control the quantum weapons technology. The galaxy agreed that such weapons should never be used again, but the knowledge needed to be preserved as a warning. The most important decision the Council made was about memory. They established the Memorial of Sol, a massive space station, built where Earth's solar system used to be. The station contained records of human history and the story of their final battle. But more than that, it contained a promise. Every species that joined the Council had to swear an oath. We will never forget the price of freedom. We will never again allow one species to enslave another. We will honor the memory of those who chose death over submission. Years passed, and the galaxy slowly healed from centuries of oppression. New worlds were settled, new technologies were developed, and new friendships were formed between species that had once been enemies. Lisa Grant, now elderly, served as the first president of the Galactic Liberation Council. She often stood on the observation deck of New Geneva, looking out at the stars and thinking about the friends she had lost. "Do you ever regret it?" asked Zara, her old friend from the Andromedan Council. "Regret what?" "The choice your species made. You could have surrendered. Some of you might have survived as slaves." Lisa thought about Captain Morrison, Admiral Collins, President Hayes, and all the others who had died for freedom. No, we made the right choice. A life without freedom isn't really life at all. The younger generation doesn't always understand. They've never known slavery or oppression. They think freedom is something that just exists naturally. Lisa nodded. That's why we built the memorial. That's why we tell the story. Every generation needs to learn that freedom has a price, and that some things are worth dying for. The Memorial of Sol became the most visited site in the galaxy. Beings from hundreds of worlds came to see the place where humanity had made their final stand. They read the records, watched the recordings, and learned about the species that had chosen extinction over slavery. The inscription on the memorial was simple but powerful. Here stood a species that valued freedom more than life. They demanded our submission. We replied with ruin. In losing everything, we freed the galaxy. Children from across the galaxy learned about the Battle of Sol in school. They learned about the humans who had chosen to die rather than kneel. They learned that freedom was not something that could be taken for granted. And sometimes, when new threats arose, when powerful beings tried to dominate others, someone would always ask, "Do you remember what happened to the last empire that demanded submission?" The Zephyrian Empire was gone, scattered and broken. But the memory of humanity's choice echoed through the galaxy. No species would ever again face the kind of ultimatum that had been given to Earth. Lisa Grant died peacefully at the age of 93, surrounded by friends from dozens of different worlds. Her last words were simple. Tell them we kept the promise. Tell them we stayed free. The galaxy mourned her passing, but they also celebrated her life and the lives of all the humans who had died for freedom. The Memorial of Sol grew larger as more species added their own tributes to humanity's sacrifice. And in the deepest archives of the memorial, a simple message was preserved. It was the last transmission from Earth, sent just before the quantum explosion consumed the solar system. This is humanity's final message to the galaxy. We were given a choice between freedom and life. We chose freedom. To any who would threaten the liberty of others, remember what happened here. Some things are worth dying for. Some principles are worth any sacrifice. We died free, and because we died free, you live free. Never forget the price we paid. Never let anyone take your freedom again. The message ended with coordinates, not to Earth, which no longer existed, but to the Memorial of Sol, where the galaxy's freedom had been bought with the ultimate price. Humanity was gone, but their legacy lived on. They had shown the galaxy that freedom was possible, no matter how powerful the enemy. They had proven that some things were indeed worth dying for, and in a galaxy where hundreds of species now lived free. That lesson would never be forgotten.